Hi, did I get your attention with the title? Good. Every single person in the US military is, at best, an accomplice to murder, theft, dispossession, or worse. That is the point of this video, stated up front. And yes, I also think the same about any other military that's used primarily for aggression against other countries or to repress locals. For example, those of Saudi Arabia, Russia, Israel, and Peru. And I'd also like to note that I'm only talking about volunteers, not conscripts. If you were forced into the military against your will, then this video is not about you. Unless you continue on beyond your required period of service, that is. And this video is not for people in the military who genuinely believe that being in the military is some sort of special good thing, who legitimately believe that they serve their country or whatever, or that the US military legitimately helps people. Everyone already knows what the US military does. And if you take a look at Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, etc., and still somehow aren't convinced that it's just fundamentally an immoral institution, I'm not going to be able to change your mind, no one is. This video is for people who are in the military, or with family or friends or whatever in it, who are well aware of those things, but who still justify involvement in it. So, with that out of the way, why do I think this? Obviously, it makes more sense to call someone who is involved in direct combat a murderer, but why is, for example, a medic an accomplice to murder? They're not killing anyone, actually they're doing the opposite. They're treating people. Well, that's exactly what makes them an accomplice. Their role is to treat the people who are directly doing the murdering, to help them recover from the wounds that they received from people defending their own lands, so that they can get back to murdering them as soon as possible, or at the very least, helping them get back to their families in one piece. A privilege not afforded to the people who they're there murdering. Either way, you're serving the needs of the murder machine. It needs you there so that it can murder more efficiently, whether you're treating soldiers out in the field or you're a nurse treating soldiers back home. And yes, again, even the latter. The military does not provide medical care and such to return soldiers out of the goodness of their hearts, but because it would reflect poorly on them if they sent soldiers home even more wounded than they already do. They'd get worse PR, less people would join up, etc. Every single action within the military serves its primary function as a murder machine in some way, even the seemingly innocuous ones. You join up but you never get sent anywhere? Well, you were still in reserve, ready to go and murder whenever it was needed, also giving the military more tactical leeway. Disaster relief? To keep the economy running, to keep taxpayer money flowing to the military, and again to foster better public relations. If you see soldiers helping out after a hurricane, you're more likely to think of the military more positively. The same role could easily be undertaken by diverting the military budget to other institutions, such as the fire service, that do not have the overarching purpose of murdering foreigners. So-called humanitarian work, it's to drum up goodwill for the military, in order to facilitate further military action and further murder. Any of these supposedly good things that the US military does could be done elsewhere, without helping to legitimize a murder machine. Join the fire service, join a humanitarian aid organization, whatever. There's no excuse for being in the military. You're a pencil pusher in the bureaucracy? You're there to keep its wheels oiled, to ensure its logistical capacity to murder, to ensure that the murderers are efficiently allocated the incentives and resources that they're given to murder. Let's talk about those incentives too. So you're poor, right? And the military is your only way to go to college. You hate it, but well, that's just how it is, right? Would you drive the getaway car for a murder if it meant that you could pay for college? No? Then why join the military and, at best, be a willing accomplice in murder in order to get ahead? There's no difference aside from the fact that generally your victims are foreigners, and it's easy for you to think of them as less than human and less worthy of such consideration. If something like the Iraq or Afghanistan wars took place in the USA, far fewer of you would be trying to justify joining the institution that perpetrated it. Personal benefit does not justify it. If your choice is between helping to murder foreigners or not going to college, then don't go to college. Otherwise, you're making a conscious decision to murder and profiting from it. It's funny to see this argument so much as if it could justify basically anything. If you wouldn't have that chance otherwise, that makes it okay? No, it doesn't. Can I somewhat understand the choice? Yeah, sure. Just like I could understand why a poor person might be driven to murder and rob their neighbor, but that doesn't make it okay. They still did something terrible. They still did something heinous. Would their lives materially improve as a result? If they didn't get caught, sure. Does that make it okay for them to do so? No, they're a murderer. Just like the American soldier who signed up to murder foreigners, or anyone else in the military who's facilitating the murder of foreigners because they wanted free college or healthcare. Oh, but maybe they didn't know these things. Maybe they've been brainwashed to believe that the US military is good and so it's not their fault. People were brainwashed in much the same way into joining ISIS, for example. Does that make it okay to join ISIS? No. Yet I can't imagine these people trying to make that same justification. And anyway, the people who think that the US military is good and great think that because they want to. We live in an age where basically everyone, yes, poor people included, have a device that allows them to access the sum of all human knowledge in their pocket. If someone doesn't at least go to the library and search for information on the US military's latest wars before joining up, it's because they didn't want to, not because there was some coercive force preventing them from doing so. Does this mean that you're a terrible, irredeemable person for even joining the military? No, of course not at all. Like most criminals, and make no mistake, you are a criminal, you can be reformed. You could, for example, quit right now at the very least. Will this result in hardship for you? Yeah, maybe. But what's worse? Experiencing hardship or actively and consciously participating in mass murder? You should really be incredibly thankful if that's the worst that you're going to deal with, because in a just world you would be facing a court. Now, I know some soldiers or their friends are already writing comments like, but you have a computer, so you're also guilty of that same stuff, because that computer involved exploitation at some point down the line. Buying a computer is obviously not remotely on the same level as literally being directly involved in an institution that is specifically designed from the ground up to murder, and that is presently, at this very moment, being used to murder foreigners as efficiently as possible. This is not a case of you participate in society. Curious. We all participate in society, and there is no ethical consumption under capitalism, that's true. But we're not talking about consumption. We're talking about you being personally involved in mass murder, while benefiting from it greatly. You're not consuming, you're murdering for profit. It's not the equivalent of buying a chocolate bar, buddy, nor is it at all the same to work for a company that engages in such practices. In that case, you're simply being exploited by them for your labor. You're just a bit more fortunate than the victims further down the line. A US soldier is not doing productive labor in any way. They're not involved in the creation of anything of any material or even abstract worth to anyone at all beyond, of course, oil and arms companies. Their entire job is to end and ruin lives, and everything they do, regardless of how innocuous it might seem, facilitates it in some way. So don't be ridiculous. Some of you just want to excuse yourselves or your friends or your family so badly that you'll constantly make the dumbest fallacious comparisons that obviously aren't remotely the same. As if someone buying a bag of rice from the supermarket is just as guilty as the guy who's on call to go and shoot foreigners at any moment. You directly participate in a machine that is specifically designed to murder. The sooner that you accept that and decide to take a moral stand and quit, the better for you and the better for everyone else in the world too. Or you can just keep at it, keep knowingly profiting from facilitating murder or murdering yourself, but at least stop lying to yourself and others about it.